Hello, Cubs, and we are starting today's Phantom Tollbooth by reviewing your responses to yesterday's question, which is again about King Azaz's traits. Remember, we said before I wrote down mean, I wanted you to see more of him in this chapter, right? Because a lot of you guys said he was mean on Monday because the chapter he wasn't super nice in. And then today, on Tuesday, I should say, you said that on Friday, excuse me. And then today, for Monday, you said completely different things, which is a lot of you said the opposite of what you said before. We got a lot of kinds. So, Nishvita, Sarge, Caden, Louisa all said kind, Srivatsa, Diley, Houston said nice, which is a synonym for kind, right? Means the same thing. Sarvanch and Louisa also said helpful. Mason said grateful, which is that's an interesting one. And Nishvita said not Nishvita, and Trinity said old. Trinity, he is old. That's very true, but that's not a character trait. That's a physical trait. Like a physical trait is what you can see by looking at them. So you did give me a trait, so kudos to you for that. Just a different kind of trait. So I want to go ahead and tell you guys nice is a character trait. So first of all, kind, nice, helpful, they're all character traits. But who's the most helpful in that chapter? Is it really King Azaz? No, it's Milo, because Milo is saying, "Oh, I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna set Rhyme and Reason free, and it's gonna help." Now he is kind in this chapter, but in the last chapter he wasn't kind. According to you guys, he was more. I wouldn't say that he was mean, but you guys said he was mean. I would agree more with his serious thing. So because he is not outwardly super kind in that chapter, you might say, well, that's not a character trait of his because he didn't show it in more than one place. Remember, a character trait is something that's going to stay the same. You're going to see it over and over again throughout a book. Now, we don't spend a ton of time with King Azaz, but we could put that he was kind and or nice, but I'm not really sure if that is his personality. It's because he would think about how he is with the math magician. But I'm gonna put down for now. I'm gonna put down nice, or actually, I'm gonna put nice slash kind. And the next time, I'm gonna put a little question mark. We sing King Azaz, we'll see. Do we think that he is nice and kind? So if the next time we see King Azaz, he's not nice, or we don't determine that he's kind, then we could kind of say, okay, well, he was nice in that one situation, but that's not something he always is. All right? So keep that in mind. So I'm going to put my King Azaz note, because we won't see him. I've read this book so many times, I know. We won't see him until much later. So I'm going to put it in the back of my book, and when we return to see him, we'll get that out and we'll talk about it. Now, here we are. We're in Dictionopolis, and as we know, our friend Milo is leaving Dictionopolis to go try to rescue Rhyme and Reason, Princess's Rhyme and Reason. So if he's leaving, we've got to decide, is he going to go this way? Because he's definitely not going to probably go back towards the doldrums. So is he going to go this way, or is he going to go this way? Because he probably can go either way. So we're going to see which way he decides to go in this chapter, which is called It's All How You Look at Things. And I want us to take a moment to think about the title of this chapter. So It's All How You Look at Things is what we call your perspective, right? The easiest way to talk about that is like, okay, well, some people see, quote, the glass is half empty, so they look at things in a very positive way. Some people think of the glass as half empty, so they think of things in a very negative way. And some people think of the glass as half full, which means they think of it in a very positive way. So depending on how you look at things, things can seem different, right? That's what this is talking about. So let's get going. Soon all traces of Dictionopolis had vanished in the distance, and all those strange and unknown lands that lay between the kingdom of words and the kingdom of numbers stretched before them. It was late afternoon, and the dark orange sun floated heavily over the distant mountains. A friendly, cool breeze slapped playfully at the car, and the long shadows stretched out lazily from the trees and the bushes. So, I want you to picture that in your mind, and I'm going to reread it again after I take a drink of water. So here we go. So I want you to imagine this, because it's a lot of what we call, it's like word painting, where he's trying to paint a picture with his words, right? Soon all the traces of Dictionopolis had vanished in the distance, and all those strange and unknown lands that lay between the kingdom of words and the kingdom of numbers stretched before them. It was late afternoon, and the dark orange sun floated heavily over the distant mountains. A friendly, cool breeze slapped playfully at the car, and the long shadows stretched lazily from trees and bushes. "Ah, the open road!" exclaimed the humbug, breathing deeply, for he now seemed happily resigned to the trip. "The spirit of adventure, the lure of the unknown, the thrill of a gallant quest. How very grand indeed!" Then, pleased with himself, he folded his arms, sat back, and left it at that. I'll have to look at... interesting picture. All right, here we go. In a few more minutes, they had come to an open countryside and driven... They had left the open countryside and driven into a dense forest. This is what it says, the sign, right? "This is the scenic route, straight ahead to the point of view." So we know point of view is the way somebody looks at something, right? Announced a rather large road sign, but contrary to the statement, all that could be seen were more trees. As the car rushed along, the trees grew thicker and taller and leafier until, just as they hid in the sky completely, the forest abruptly ended and the road bent itself around a broad promontory. That's a good word to look up, so you can think about what that means. So the forest abruptly ended, and the sky and the road bent itself around a broad promontory. Stretching below to the left and right and straight ahead, as far as anyone could see, lay the rich green landscape through which they had been traveling. So basically, they came to this place, and then they could see the where they had been. All right. "Remarkable view," announced the humbug, bouncing from the car as if he were responsible for the whole thing. "Isn't it beautiful?" gasped Milo. "Oh, I don't know," answered a strange voice. "It's all in the way you look at things." "I beg your pardon?" said Milo, for he didn't see who had spoken. "I said it's all how you look at things," repeated the voice. Milo turned around and found himself staring at two very neatly polished brown shoes, for standing directly in front of him, if you can use the word standing for anyone suspended in midair, was another boy about his age whose feet were easily 3 feet off the ground. "For instance," continued the boy, "if you happen to like deserts, you might not think this was beautiful at all." "That's true," said the humbug, who didn't like to contradict anyone whose feet were that far off the ground. "For instance," said the boy again, "if Christmas trees were people, and people were Christmas trees, we'd all be chopped down, put up in a living room, and covered with tinsel, while the trees opened our presents." "What does that have to do with it?" asked Miles. "Nothing at all," he answered, "but it's an interesting possibility, don't you think?" "How do you manage to stand up there?" asked Milo, for this was the subject which most interested him. "I was about to ask you a similar question," answered the boy, "for you must be much older than you look to be standing on the ground." "What do you mean?" Milo asked. "Well," said the boy, "in my family, everyone is born in the air, with his head at exactly the height he's going to be when he's an adult. And then we all grow down toward the ground. When we're fully grown up, or as you can see, grown down, our feet finally touch. Of course, there are a few of us whose feet never reach the ground, no matter how old we get. But I suppose it's the same in every family. Huh. So when you finally grown up, your feet touch the ground. But he's saying that there's some people in his family whose feet never touch the ground because they never grow up. I want you to think about that. What do they mean by that? Yeah, keep thinking. He hopped a few steps in the air, skipped back to where he started, and then began again. You certainly must be very old to have reached the ground already. Oh, no, said Milo seriously. In my family, we all start on the ground and grow up. And we never know how far until we actually get there. What a silly system, the boy laughed. Then your head keeps changing its height. You always see things in a different way. Why, when you're 15, things won't look at all the way they did when you were 10. And at 20, everything will change again. I suppose so, replied Milo, for he had never really thought about the matter. We always see things from the same angle, the boy continued. It's much less trouble that way. Besides, it makes more sense to grow down and not up. When you're very young, you can never hurt yourself by falling down if you're in midair, and you certainly can't get into trouble for scuffing up your shoes or marking the floor if there's nothing to scuff them on and the floor is 3 feet away. Well, that's very true, thought Tock, who wondered how the dogs in the family liked the arrangement. But there are many other ways to look at things, remarked the boy. For instance, if you had orange juice, boiled eggs, toast and jam, and milk for breakfast, he said, turning to Milo, and you are always worried about people wasting time, he said to Tock, and you are almost never right about anything, he said, pointing at the humbug. And when you are, it's usually an accident. A gross exaggeration, protested the furious bug, who didn't realize that so much was visible to the naked eye. Amazing, gasped Tock. How did you know all that? Asked Milo. Simple, he said proudly. I'm Alec Beans. I see through things. I can see whatever is inside, behind, around, covered by, or subsequent to anything else. In fact, the only thing I can't see is whatever happens to be right in front of my nose. So I want you to think about what he means. So he can see anything, whatever's inside, behind, around, covered by, or subsequent to anything else. So he's basically saying he can see everything about Milo and Tock and the humbug because of this special ability he has, right? Isn't that a little inconvenient? Asked Milo, whose neck was becoming quite stiff from looking up. It is a little, said Alex, but it is quite important to know what lies behind things, and the family helps me take care of the rest. My father sees 2 things. My mother looks after things. My brother sees beyond things. My uncle sees the other side of every question, and my little sister Alice sees under things. Well, how can she see other things if she's all the way up there? Growled the humbug. Well, added Alex, turning a neat cartwheel, whatever she can't see under, she overlooks. Would it be possible for me to see something from up there? Milo asked politely. You could, said Alec, but only if you try very hard to look at things as an adult does. Milo tried as hard as he could, and as he did, his feet floated slowly off the ground until he was standing in the air next to Alec Bings. He looked around very quickly and an instant later crashed down to the earth again. Interesting, wasn't it? Asked Alec. Yes, it was, agreed Milo, rubbing his head and dusting himself off. But I think I'll continue to see things as a child. It's not so far to fall. A wise decision, at least for the time being, said Alec. Everyone should have his own point of view. Isn't this everyone's point of view? And I want you to look at the difference. This is lowercase, and this is capital. So remember, capital means it's a special name of a place. So Tock is talking about the place point of view, where they can look out and see all the beautiful things, the greenery below them. And Alec is not. He's talking about what a person's point of view is. So I'll start from here. Everyone should have his own point of view. Isn't this everyone's point of view? Asked Tock, looking around curiously. Of course not, replied Alex, sitting himself down on nothing. It's only mine. And certainly you can't always look at things from someone else's point of view. For instance, from here, that looks like a bucket of water, he said, pointing to a bucket of water. But from an ant's point of view, it's a vast ocean. From an elephant's, it's just a cool drink. And to a fish, of course, it's home. So you see, the way you look at things depends a great deal on where you look at them from. Now, come along and I'll show you the rest of the forest. He ran quickly through the air, stopping occasionally to beckon Milo, Tock, and the Humbug along, and they followed as well as anyone who had to stay on the ground could. Does everyone here grow the way you do? Puffed Milo when he had caught up. Almost everyone, replied Alec, and then he stopped for a moment and thought. Now and then, though, someone does begin to grow differently. Instead of down, his feet grow upwards toward the sky. But we do our best to discourage awkward things like that. What happens to them? Insisted Milo. Oddly enough, they grow 10 times the size of everyone else, said Alec thoughtfully. And I've heard that they walk among the stars. And with that, he skipped off once again to the waiting woods. So, first of all, before we go back, I'm going to read that again in a second, but I want us to look at where he went in our map, right? So here's Dictionopolis. If we come this way, we can see the Forest of Sight here, and here it winds through, and here's where they are right now, the point of view. So they're kind of up here, and it's a higher spot, and they can look and see all the green that's around them that they'd come through. But they're still not out of the Forest of Sight yet, because here's the Forest of Sight, and they still have a ways to go, right? In fact, they've got a long ways to go. Now, I want to return to that last sentence, last couple of sentences. I guess 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs. I want us to return to this because I want you to think about the point that our writer, Norton Juster, might be making. All right? So let's read that again. And I want you to think about how this the point he's making and what lesson might be learned from it. Okay? Almost everyone, replied Alec, and then he stopped for a moment and thought. Now and then, though, someone does begin to grow differently. Instead of down, his feet grow upward toward the sky. But we do our best to discourage the awkward things like that. Now here's where I want you to pay attention. What happens to them? Insisted Milo. Oddly enough, they often grow 10 times the size of everyone else, said Alec thoughtfully, and I've heard that they walk among the stars. So what is Norton Juster saying about people who are different, who do things differently? All right? So that was our chapter 9. On tomorrow, we will start with chapter 10, A Colorful Symphony. And I think that's probably a 2-day chapter, but we'll see. All right, guys. Have a great Tuesday and leave your comments. On Class Dojo.